something really, really cool. We are going to take two programs from Rogue Amoeba, and it's Loopback and Audio Hijack Pro, and we're going to use those two programs like a mixer, just like a hardware mixer, and we're going to take a microphone, Skype, a sound cart program, put them onto 3 different tracks, and then route all 3 of those tracks to GarageBand. So this is something I promised a long time ago, and it's taken me a little while to get to it, and I apologize, but this is what we're going to do today. And we're going to start, I've got all the programs are open in a separate window, so we're going to scoot over there, and we're going to start with Loopback. So here's Loopback, and I guess in post I'll make things bigger or smaller or what have you. And what we're going to do with Loopback is we are first going to create a device that we can use to send all kinds of audio through Loopback to Skype, because if you're doing something with someone else and they can't hear what it is you're doing, then it's kind of a waste of time. So here's the one I have set up here in Skype, and I'm going to get rid of that. And what I'm going to do is not really add anything here. This is basically just going to be used to pass through audio for things that I will create in Audio Hijack. So you'll see I've got the audio sources muted, manual channel mapping, and I've got a single track or single stereo track, one on the left, one on the right. And the reason why this is really all you need to do with Loopback as far as Skype goes is that Skype only has one source that can go into it, so you can't have multiple channels. So here's what we're going to use to send all the audio that we're going to generate from your computer that you want the other person on Skype to hear. Now, the other thing we're going to need is a way to take all of the other sources of audio and move those to GarageBand onto separate tracks. So here's the one I have set up, and it's very, very similar. The audio source is muted. I don't have anything here as far as sources go, but then you come on down here to channel mapping, and you'll notice that I've got 6 channels made up. So, and you know, how you have yours set up is completely up to you, but I typically use the first 2 channels, and occasionally I only use it as a mono source, to go from my microphone, and it doesn't matter the way this is set up, whether it's a USB microphone or whether you actually have it going through some other audio device, doesn't matter. So I take my first 2, and those are going to go into GarageBand on tracks 1 and 2. 3 and 4 I use for Skype. 5 and 6 I use for Ambrosia Software's soundboard, though you could use iTunes, you could use QuickTime, you could use any program on your Mac that generates audio, and Loopback will capture it and put it here. So honestly, that's pretty much all we need to do in Loopback. So again, I've got one Loopback device here that I'm using to route audio from my computer into Skype. Then I have a second one that I'm using for all the audio, whether it's Skype or coming from my computer, to route that into GarageBand. I have 6 tracks for GarageBand, and I have 2 tracks for Skype. So now we're going to move over to Audio Hijack. Now you'll notice I've got a blank session here. I don't really have anything in here. So what I need to do is let's put some stuff here. So it's already set up for my microphone, though you can select pretty much whatever you want, but I'm going to select my microphone. So there's one source, and then I'm going to come over here and put in 2 application sources. This one here is going to be Skype. Okay, now this is also very, very important. When you have Skype audio selected for one of your Audio Hijack inputs, make sure that you check these off. You don't want it to split between channels, and you don't want to include the audio input, which in this case would be your microphone. There's no reason to do that. And then this second one is going to be Soundboard. And Soundboard is the sound card program from Ambrosia Software that I like to use to put all my stuff in various places. All right, so here's my inputs. Now I need some outputs. And we're going to put a bunch of outputs down here. Now, this is going to look kind of weird, but I actually need 2 outputs for my microphone, and I need 2 outputs for Soundboard. And it'll all make sense in a minute, in a little while. And make sure that none of those are touching. Okay, so let's start with the microphone. Here's the microphone, and the first output device, I want this to go to the output that I made in Loopback that's going to go to Skype. So I will choose Skype AH. You can go ahead and leave it at default. You'll notice that there's only 2 channels there because that's all you had in that output. And then we're going to do the same thing with Soundboard. We're going to come here, and we are going to choose Skype AH as our output. Now, for these last 3, we want all 3 of these now to go to GarageBand. So we're going to select the GarageBand Tracks one that I made. And see, now we have 6 inputs because that's the number of inputs that you chose for that Loopback device. So there's 1 and 2. So I have 2 channels from my microphone going to Skype AH and GarageBand Tracks. Now for the Skype one, we only need to choose GarageBand Tracks. And the reason for that is you don't need to send Skype audio back into itself because that will create a lot of feedback and you don't want that. So we are going to select 2 channels now for Skype. We're going to select 3 and we're going to select 4. And we chose 1 and 2 here, 3 and 4 here. And then for Soundboard, we're going to select, first we have to select GarageBand Tracks. We're going to select 5 and 6. Okay, so now we have our 3 we have our 2 applications and 1 microphone audio source. They are going into either Skype, and they're all going into GarageBand. Now, there's other things that you can put in here as well. One of the things that I find very, very useful, as soon as I can get to it, is Dynamics Processor. And anything that could possibly have some background noise, put in a Dynamics Processor. You don't really need it for Soundboard because those are pre-rendered clips. So when we open this up, let me turn it on. When we open it up, you can see, now this is coming from my microphone. You can see that you've got some sound coming in here, and it's showing you that there's sound there. And what you want to do is make it so that all the background noise can't be heard. So we stay quiet. When we stay quiet, we notice that it's leveling off right about a neg 80 dB. Well, you want to go a little higher than that. Let's go up to 60, more or less. And we'll move this up to 20. And now we move this out. And when it's in the red, there is no sound being transmitted. I'll be quiet here. I know how hard that is for me. I will be quiet, and you will see that no sound will be coming out of the Dynamics Processor to the outputs. Okay, so we have an input. We have our microphone input. We have a kind of a noise gate happening here, and we have it going to 2 different outputs. Now for Skype, we want to do kind of the same thing. We will get a Where'd it go? There it is. We'll put another dynamics processor here. And if there's one thing that I wish Audio Hijack wouldn't do is automatically start grabbing inputs and routing them to different places unless you tell it to. So we have Skype. Now, I don't have anyone on Skype, but just as a frame of reference, we will set it up similar to what I had the other one for a noise gate. And there's absolutely nothing going on because I don't have anybody on Skype at the moment. And soundboard is pretty much good to go. So to do a quick review, we have our input microphone, a noise gate AU Dynamics processor. It's outputting through this device and loopback to Skype. It's outputting it through this device to GarageBand. We have Skype as an application. We have a noise gate AU Dynamics processor on there. And for some reason, we have another one. I don't know why we have two there. What happened to... Well, we're just going to get rid of that one. I don't know how that got in there. Doesn't matter. And then we have our output for Skype going to GarageBand tracks. Same thing with soundboard. Soundboard is outputting to Skype AH and GarageBand tracks. Now, it's not a bad idea if you want to have a little bit of backup, is to put a recorder in here. I'm going to pause it because I don't actually need to record, at least not this audio. So as you look at this, you've got all three of these. They're all going to different outputs, and eventually we'll get to GarageBand in a second. But then you have this recorder here, and this recorder can be set up in several different ways. It's currently set up as an MP3, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that off so that I can make some adjustments here. Really, if you're going to record audio, you want to start with the highest quality audio that you can, and then work your way down from there if you have to. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to uncompressed AIFF. So we've got uncompressed AIFF. Well, we'll just leave it at 16-bit. Sample rate, let's give it a hard sample rate of 44.1 kilohertz. And channel stereo. So everything that is happening here will record to here as long as that recorder is turned on. And of course, you can decide where you want to put it. You can save it to your desktop. You can save it to other, to someplace else if you want. But we're not going to really worry about that right now. You can decide how you want to save that recording. All right, so, and we're going to just leave it off for right now, but make sure that if you follow this, that you turn this back on so that when you engage it, when you engage this Audio Hijack session, and actually let me go here. I'm going to turn it back on for just a second. So when I turn this back on, you'll see the microphone input start to work, and you'll see that it is starting to record in the recorder that we just put in. Okay, so now you can see that it's recording. And we're going to turn it back off again, or we'll just leave it paused. It doesn't really matter. Now we're going to move to Skype. So we come over here, we bring up Skype. Now remember that the input that we're choosing for Skype has to be from Audio Hijack, and we want it to include the microphone and soundboard. So we go to Skype Preferences. We go to Audio Video. Hey, and you'll see that it's already set up for Skype AH, and it is picking up my microphone there. I'm going to bring up soundboard here for just a second. I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to select one of these. Let's choose this one. Now you probably didn't hear that sound clip because I don't have this recording set up to pick that up, but you could see that the audio level changed in preferences for Skype. And honestly, there is nothing else that you have to do with Skype beyond that, is just to make sure that your audio device is the input for Skype, so whoever it is that you're talking to on Skype can hear you and can hear the other audio sources. So we're going to move all that out of the way. And now we're going to move into GarageBand. And I have, this is a blank session. You can see that I have one track enabled and it's picking up my audio from the microphone because that's kind of what it's set up to do. But we're going to do a couple of different things here. Number one, we need to put some more tracks in here. And we need to, let's go to track. We need to put some more stuff in here. We don't need the groove track, but we want to show the lock. And this is over in track, then to track header in case you can't see that. Show record enable button. And that's, for now, that's pretty much what you need to be able to do this. So all of this stuff is there. We have this one audio track. And what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this track twice. So there's track 2. And there's track 3. And they all have all the various recording enabled things that we needed to have. All right. So you can see that there's audio coming in here from me. We're going to go to track 2 and you'll notice it's basically has the same input as track 1, but we're going to change that to 3 and 4. And then we come down to audio 3 and we're going to change that to 5 and 6. Now what makes all this work is we're going to go to GarageBand preferences. Whoops, it's in the wrong window, but I will drag it over here. And we will go to audio MIDI. Output device doesn't really matter. For your input device, you choose the loopback device that you made in the very beginning called GarageBand Tracks. And that will give you 6 tracks of audio that, I mean, essentially, depending on how you worked it, you could actually have 6 different sources of audio coming in with this same loopback device. Depending on what kind of Mac you have, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but yeah, you could. All right, so we have 3 tracks enabled: my microphone, Skype, and Loopback. Now, there's one more thing that you have to do in order to enable all 3 of these tracks to record at the same time. And obviously, you have to enable those tracks. So you just hit that little button there and you'll see that they're all blinking. And we can turn all that stuff off. So if I hit record now, you will see audio being recorded in GarageBand from my microphone. And I'll just go ahead and do that. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so you can see that there's some audio there, you know, and I haven't really done much in the way of trying to clean it up or enhance it or anything like that. This is just audio coming in. Now, the other thing is let's make sure that soundboard, which I set up for tracks 5 and 6, is also working here in GarageBand. Now, remember, that's going to be audio track 3. So I just hit anything. And you can see the audio that came across 3. Now, one other thing you can do to kind of keep this straight is you can double click where it says audio 1, and let's just call this my microphone. We're going to come here to track 2, and we're going to call this Skype. And track 3, we're going to call this soundboard. And again, if it was iTunes or it was QuickTime or whatever source of audio that you have coming over through Audio Hijack, which we set up earlier, and Loopback, which we also set up earlier, you can just go ahead and name those. Now, once you have your basic layout set up, you don't want to have to go through this each and every time as far as GarageBand goes. So what you can do is you come here and you want to do a save as, and let's call this my podcast pre-make, just for whatever. Doesn't really matter what you call it, but just basically a template that you can go back and use each time. And it changed it right up there. Excuse me. So we know that soundboard works. We know that your microphone works. And the last bit here is good old Skype. And we're not going to actually talk to anyone, but what we want is Skype call lady. Where is the Skype call lady? There it is, Skype test call. And you can see the audio coming in there. Let's go ahead and hit record. 1, 2, 3, 4. She's really, really hot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, as I'm talking, it's recording me on Skype. And when she comes back to talk again, you'll see that audio start to come up here, assuming that I did everything in Skype correctly, which I believe I did. There's my audio playing back in Skype. And then we come here. And just for grins, just so that you can see that all 3 tracks are enabled. All 3 tracks are recording audio. So you can take basically any USB microphone that you're comfortable with. You don't have to go out and buy a mixer if you don't want to. Now, I do use a mixer, but you don't really have to. If you're comfortable with a USB microphone and that's what you want to use, then this is an easy way and honestly a little less expensive way to get around having to buy an expensive piece of equipment and then wiring it up and doing all the configuration. I'm sure if you've gotten this far, you've probably seen YouTube videos for mix minuses. They can be very complicated. But once you have this set up with Rogue Amoeba's Audio Hijack Pro and Loopback, you can route any audio that is coming into your computer or generated by your computer and get that on a separate track in GarageBand. So I think that is going to be about it. I hope you found this instructive and entertaining, or at least instructive. I can't guarantee about the entertaining part. And I'll probably do something like this again, and we will see you next time.